We are here at the Cloud and CyberSecurity Expo 2019 in Singapore at the Marina Bay Sands Convention Center. And with me today is Mr. Shawn Rogers, Senior Director of Analytic Strategy of Tibco. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, now let's go straight into the questions right now. And for Tibco and looking at data analytics as a whole, what are the biggest challenges companies face when it comes to data analytics?
Well, I think the biggest challenge right now is not getting overly excited about the technology itself. I just had the pleasure of giving a speech upstairs, and I talked about that data is an important and critical aspect of what we're dealing with AI and ML and analytics in general. But the data is almost not as important as what decisions you make from it, how fast you're able to make those decisions, and the actions that you're able to apply. So I think that, to answer your question really sharply, is the biggest challenge is making sure you're getting the proper ROI from your analytics, and in that it has to include that whole loop, right? It has to include the information and data all the way to the action that you take, and if you're doing the right actions, that's the great challenge, but it's also the great opportunity.
Now, speaking of actions, why aren't companies, are companies taking the right actions, or are they still not sure what actions they need to take?
Well, I get the pleasure of traveling all over the world. So last week I was in London for Tibco. A couple weeks before that, I was in South Africa. And one thing that I do pick up on is everybody attacks this challenge and the opportunity differently. So region to region, you see subtleties. So for instance, we did a survey last year called the CXO Innovation Survey. We talked to 600 global executives about what they were doing to innovate. And when we asked them, when it came to the people and the culture and the technology, what was most important, globally the answer was technology. But interestingly enough, here regionally, the answer was culture. So when innovation happens in this market, the executives and the people doing it tend to lead with culture first instead of technology first. And frankly, I think that's a brilliant approach, because all three of them are extremely important, and a balance of them is what helps people be successful. So a lot of difference between all the markets.
Now looking at culture and technology, artificial intelligence is also something big. It's becoming like a culture.
It is in a way, right?
Right now. So how is AI innovating and changing how data analytics is measured?
Well, you know, there's countless ways that AI is changing businesses, and I think that there's a couple. For instance, from my perspective at Tibco, we've changed some of our focus to make sure that AI is a foundation of all of our technology. So we make sure we have AI in our services, our solutions, and as we bring them into the market, our customers benefit from it. And then, of course, our customers are in the market trying to apply AI, machine learning, to their specific problems. And so we see this innovation happening on both sides, the vendor community as well as the consumer and customer community. There's fantastic things happening from an innovation standpoint. I've recently seen an example of how hospitals are using machine learning and AI in the operating room to determine the best way to finish a surgery to eliminate infection after the surgery. And the hospital that does this with our software eliminated post-operative infections over 70% of the time. I mean, that's really impactful. But I think it's also important, and people talk about how AI is changing things. It's critical to understand that AI often works its best when it's coupled with a person, a human. And I think augmenting the intelligence of people with AI is really where the value is. That hospital is a really good one. Augmenting the decisions of a doctor with machine learning and advanced analytics, that's incredible. So coupling it with people is one of the cool things about it.
All right, now speaking of hospitals using AI and all that, so would you say that institutions like this are becoming more data-driven? So when it comes to analyzing data, how important is it that they become data-driven as well?
I think in this sort of age of digital transformation and automation and optimizing your business, one of the things that's come from that is this kind of clarity around how important data can be to drive a business. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether it's manufacturing, retail, insurance, banking, and so on. Every industry can find great value by driving their business using data and the analytics and the insight that come from it. And as I said when I was discussing like the healthcare one example, there's just countless examples of how this combination of data and analytics is creating new business models and new ways of enhancing customer experience and doing things at a completely different level. And one is dependent upon the other. You can't really do fantastic analytics without great data. But at the same time, the transverse is true. You can't automate, for instance, if I'm on Netflix and I'm streaming movies, I can't offer the customer the next best movie to watch unless I have the data and the analytics together. And it's becoming something we expect. I would be mad if Amazon didn't tell me what pair of pants to buy with my shirt. So I expect that.
But, okay, just something to discuss a bit more on this. But would you say our decisions become more controlled by data? I mean, it kind of locks our ability to make our own choices at the same time?
I don't see it as a restrictive thing. I'll go back to the hospital example I gave you. It's the University of Iowa hospitals in the U.S. And when we make the recommendation to the doctor, it's just that. It's a recommendation. And I think that it's important, and that's what I meant before about where the human element becomes very important. And so, yeah, I don't see it as a lock-in. Like I said, if Netflix says this is the movie you should watch, it's still up to me if I want to. But I do like this prescriptive customer experience where it makes it easier for me to do things and easier to enjoy services. So, I think overall I see it as a positive.
Fantastic. Okay, my last question to you is, now, Tibco recently announced bringing integration and advanced analytics solutions to AWS.
Yeah.
And are there plans to partner other cloud providers with similar solutions as well?
Well, we do things in a lot of locations. AWS is a premier partner for us. We do a lot of great work on the Azure platform, and we're also doing some work with Google. So we have identified that cloud is where our customers do business, and it's an imperative for us to intersect and be where our customers do business. And I think that that's sort of our guiding idea around it. For us, there's sort of three foundational things for us to be concerned about. One is to be very cloud native in our approach to how we help our customers. The other is to have open platforms, and this openness is important because our customers have a very diverse landscape of solutions, diverse landscape of data, so you have to be open. And the third bit I actually mentioned already, which is having an AI foundation to the things that we do. And I think that those are the new imperatives for companies like Tibco, and it's a demand that we're meeting from our customers.
Just to add on that, now you say you've got different types of data from different customers, right?
Yeah.
What is the most complicated data to analyze, actually?
I think there's a couple. One is, we're here at this big data event, and so the size of data can make data complex to process. So you have to have a system that scales to meet the size. It also, that's new, right? We didn't used to keep all of our data. Now we live in an all data world. So that's a new complexity. I think the other complexity that we see around data is just managing it. You mentioned that we have offerings in the data management side and so on. You'll see a common thread with Tibco that all things are data oriented. So whether we're connecting data or augmenting the intelligence of our users or unifying data so that it's easier to use in an analytic world, those things are all key. But yeah, and back to the core of your question, I think the toughest data is data that's super large. And unstructured data,
that's true.
Audio data, those things are still a nice, complex challenge, although companies like ours, we're starting to overcome those as well.
That's fantastic. All right, thank you for joining us and speaking to us more about data analytics.
Fantastic, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks for watching, everyone.